current affairs, law, labor, science, environment, and developmental discussions. WhatsApp FM 99.3.
Re a leboga nako ke metsotso e le somepedi ho ya iring ya boshupa re santse re le motabeng yona yeo re tlo tsena ho ka kwa ba le ba mokgatlo wa African Transformation Movement gore bona ba ka be ba di bona byang re kwile mo polelong ya bona ba e tlhagisitse taba ya gore ba bona taba ya kiletso ya besepelo yeo e tloang e tseneletse kudukudu e sa tlisi kgolofelo go bona o tla gopola ga botse gore mo president o ile a tsia naga ka tsatsi la morena a e bea ka mo lockdown alert level 4 gomme a tsebisha ga botse gore seo se tlotse ya beke tse pedi re bolela teka ka taba e re kgone o ka e tsenella gona mo gomme mo mohaleng ke tlo amogela molaodi wa dikgokaganyo tsa mokgatlo wa ATM ka mantswe a mangwe communications manager Zama Ntshona. Good evening to you and welcome to WhatsApp FM.
Good evening, sir, and I'd like to say good evening to you and the listeners.
All right, it's a pleasure indeed to have you here. So as ATM, you find these tightened regulations and restrictions not inspiring confidence. Why?
They are not inspiring confidence because we are now at around about 460 days since the first lockdown was pronounced. And when you look into it, we still have fewer beds. We still have no vaccines. The vaccines we have procured have had an efficacy rate of 22%. The other ones are contaminated. The other ones are experimental. So we are in no better position as South Africa right now than we were 459 days ago when it comes to these. When you see at the whole concept of the flattening of the curve, it has always been the resources available versus the rising numbers or the demand. And you see clearly that every now and again we go beyond the numbers of the health resources that are available. When we went to the first lockdown, it was two things we wanted to achieve: slow down the rate at which the virus, the rate of infection. But most importantly was to build the infrastructure, the health infrastructure of the country, because over and above, if you have 50 beds and you have 100 people who are infected, chances are the 50 who do not have beds will die. So that's why we wanted to build the infrastructure of the health system so that at any given point when you have people who are infected with the virus, you can accommodate them within the health infrastructure. But what happened in South Africa? 500 billion was stolen. Now we find ourselves having not moved an inch from day one. This is why we're saying we can call as many lockdowns as we want. They are not going to make a difference, not until we drastically deal with the improving of the health infrastructure, which we can't right now because everyone, as the president of the country or the president of the ANC has said to their members, they are a pack of wolves. So we have seen the pack of wolves devouring what was meant to build this country. So we are not inspired.
Mm-hmm. Are you of the thought, and this is something I'm picking up from what you are saying, that the country heavily relies on usage of vaccinations instead of extending or putting more on health infrastructure, which is something that perhaps could have done something better?
You would remember that the phenomenon of vaccines, this is why the African Transformation Movement had written to SAPRA and also written to the Speaker of Parliament so that the then minister could come and actually give us explanation on how they are choosing. The nature of vaccines, they take about 7 to 14 years for them to be fully developed. So we knew that in the absence of 14 years, we were then heavily reliant on the health infrastructure. So they ignored and they wanted to purchase vaccines at any cost, much to the wastage of taxpayers' money, instead of building the health infrastructure, because right now it is still a lot of phenomenon when it comes to the vaccines, because we are not yet at a point when the vaccines are able to to cope with the ever mutating virus from alpha to beta, from beta to delta. Delta, we're talking about the Eta one now, already seen in the Cape Town route, the Garden route. So you see here that the scientists are in sixes and sevens in trying to keep up. But if we were able to provide a stronger health infrastructure that could take more people, we wouldn't be in this quagmire we find ourselves in.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure that you probably are paying attention to what is happening in Europe. Sports-wise, we see that on the pitch there are fans, and I've seen a tweet by Sputnik saying that quite number of people there have been vaccinated through their product. So are you still of the view that these vaccinations may not even make any impact positively in South Africa, even to this day?
Every country, this virus in each country mutates differently. And we are not, this is why the AstraZeneca, which had worked elsewhere, couldn't even be an option in South Africa, because in South Africa, it only had a 22% efficacy rate. So each country has a makeup that is unique to the circumstances that it finds itself in. To bring a vaccine with a 22% efficacy rate in a country that has recovery rate of over 95% is a waste of money. That is what we are alluding to. We are not saying there is no vaccine that can actually deal with the issues at hand. But the issue that we are raising is that would have, in fact, when you say Russia, China, Cuba, we see very progressive people there. In fact, they are not even wearing masks there. But are we, as the South African, is the South African government investing in those tried and tested vaccines? It is not. And you ask yourself, why are they hell-bent on using experimental medicine, which is every now and again disappointing us as a country? So what we are saying, we are not anti-vaccine. We've always said that, but we've often said it must be the right vaccine. And we are also saying that the South African phenomenon is peculiar to the mutation of the virus in the southern tip of Africa. And therefore, the response there would have to speak to the makeup of the virus. This is why then the health infrastructure, once again, becomes pivotal, because the more ventilators you have, the more people you can admit, the more people you can be able to monitor in a medical environment, the more people you can save, because that one is a definite whilst the vaccine is still being developed.
Mm-hmm. So the country shouldn't be rushing to have a vaccine, but instead should invest more in infrastructure in the health sector.
This is not an either-or situation. But what we said as we closed on the first day was that we'll slow down infections, we'll build health infrastructure, and we'll look for a vaccine. These must run parallel to each other. But the one thing that we have control over is the building of the infrastructure. And we don't have control over the finalization of the development of the vaccine. So deal with what is at your disposal, what is within your control as government, whilst you pursue what you know that it is not in your control. So what we have done is that we're lagging behind in even dealing with what is within our control, whilst we pursue something that we don't know its finalization, when that finalization is going to come. So this is why we say that this does not inspire confidence. There is no coherent strategy of the Ramaphosa administration. Once again, he proves to be an incompetent president with an incoherent strategy of dealing with the virus.
Mm-hmm. Just before we wrap up, this year is the first for African Transformation Movement that you will be participating in local government elections. And as of yesterday, the Moseneke Commission kickstarted, which looks at the potential fairness and freedom in the elections. Are you in support of it? And also, perhaps, what outcomes do you wish to see?
Let me start here. The mandate given to the councillors that started in 2016 has expired. And therefore, constitutionally, we must find a way forward. And that way forward can be the extension of the mandate. That we are clear on. These people who have stolen, these people who have defrauded, these people who have proven to be thugs cannot be extended a mandate. A mandate cannot be extended. So that is number one. Number two, it is unfortunate that we find ourselves as a country in a quagmire where we now, at the termination of that mandate, we find ourselves dealing with the COVID-19 phenomenon. Now, we are still having talks around this issue on what would be the best thing to do, because it is clear now the rate at which South Africa, even with the current available vaccines, it is vaccinating. We are not going to have had immunity by the 27th of October. So this now says, can there be free and fair elections? It's a very big if when you look at this, because it's going to be restriction after restriction, it's going to be lockdown after lockdown. So you can't have a free and fair election in that. So what other possibilities do we have? One of the possibilities we're contemplating on is there is a mandate of 2019, which was a mandate that was given for the local and national elections. That's the freshest mandate that we have on the table. Maybe it should be something that we start to look into, that now that the mandate of 2016 has expired, the closest to this time is 2019. Can't we use the mandate of 2019 and have what we have in the National Assembly extrapolated into every municipality as the percentages that we find in the National Assembly? In that way, and let that be an interim government that will only last for about 2 years, so that in 2024 we may consider what the EFF is bringing, that let's align on elections and have all elections on the same year. But we have not taken conclusions on these matters. These are some of the views that are coming through, that maybe what we can do, we can use the mandate of 2019, and in using that mandate of 2019, we have new councillors that would occupy the space, but it will be an interim government of about 2 years. Then maybe in 2024, we would have dealt with herd immunity of the citizens, and therefore we could go to elections. But the issue of extending this expired mandate, it is not even for consideration.
Mm-hmm. And won't that somehow cascade to, the mandate of 2019 with the representation from respective political parties? Won't that cascade to the same problems that you are raising, for South Africa to be emanating from? And what I basically mean is that we have seen that still the majority have voted for the ANC. So it means that that same mandate would mean that there would still be councillor representation from the same party.
Yeah, no, it is true. It is true to a certain extent. But everyone knows that the ANC suffered in the 2019 elections. Their margins were significantly dropped. And we would have to base... In the event that we are not able to hold free and fair election, there is a benchmark we have to use, and that benchmark must reflect democracy. And the only closest benchmark to 2021 would actually be the mandate given by the people of South Africa in 2019, because those results were results that were given birth to by a democratic process. Because we try, by all means, even if it is not going to suit us, as the ATM, but the voice that must emerge must be a tried and tested voice of the people, so that we do not impose ourselves on the people, but we take the mandate of the people. We are not hungry for power, as much as the ANC may be weak right now, but we're not hungry for power if it is not going to be power that we are given by the people. So in a problematic environment that is like the current state we find ourselves in, it would be wise to consider, as I've said, we have not finalized on these matters. These are ideas and discussions that are there, that perhaps the closest mandate, the closest reflection of the majority of this country is the 2019 election, and therefore we may want to consider that so as to be able to deal with the current challenge. But as I've said before, extending the mandate as it was in 2016, not an option.
All right. ATM Communications Manager Zama Ntshona, thanks a lot for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much to you and the listeners.
All right.
Waterbeck Talk, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 8 p.m.